All right, welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Odyssey, joined as always by my co-host, Ken Torres. We're going to start off. We're going to be talking about a lot of things today. We're going to focus on some recruiting updates, and then we're going to preview the spring football season that is now, it's the 10th, so actually 10 days away now, which is kind of crazy. It's getting closer and closer. But to start off, A&M basketball, we both believe is going to be headed to the NCAA tournament first-year head coach, Bucky McMillan. Actually, last show we did last Wednesday, A&M had already beaten Kentucky. We had briefly talked about they need to defeat LSU on the road, probably to solidify their spot as an at-large bid to the Big Dance, and they got it done. It took three overtimes.
Against LSU.
It was a miserable game to watch at the end because I remember I was watching with my dad. I was over at my parents because it was a later game, and we're both looking at each other. I'm like, when is this thing's going to end? Like, I can't take it anymore. We're watching a bunch of tired guys just go turn the ball over, go miss shots. And then it's like, okay, somebody's got to step up. It's going to be either one of LSU's kind of reserve players that has healthier legs. We saw at the end of the game that Marcus Hill had a big shot and he was fresh. But again, for like the gazillionth time this season, senior forward Rashawn Agee made a clutch play. It was a 3-point play layup. Made his free throw, hit a couple big threes to either take the lead or tie the game. I mean, as clutch as you can get from a big man and somebody who really just epitomizes A&M this season of just relentless, aggressive, never going to give up no matter what the score is. This is a game where A&M was actually trailing by 15 points in the first half. I didn't think it was over because LSU is a stinky team, and I did not see A&M really not being in the game, even if they were down by that much. If this was like against Florida or somebody else, probably be a different story. But I don't even know how many fans were in attendance. Probably not that many.
It didn't seem like a lot.
I think that was a 15-15 team that's not going to the tournament. So, but either way, that it was incredible to watch, and it was a game that they really needed to have because you and I both thought they were in the tournament even after beating Kentucky. But doing this takes zero. It takes all the doubt away and that the Aggies are headed to March.
Yeah, it does. And Rashawn Agee, I think we should also say, did make all SEC third team for A&M in year one under Bucky McMillan, which is absolutely amazing considering the state that they were in to start, April coming off of the NCAA tournament berth last season. So really big kudos to him right now. I mean, he was just an absolute leader for them. I think Bucky McMillan today at their press conference said he was their soldier on the court, which lines up to, the values that A&M likes, right? Yeah. But it stems all the way back from when we had originally heard, Agee might not get his waiver denied or approved. That's why USC didn't or couldn't roster him anymore. And now look right now, USC basketball right now is probably one of the most injury-riddled teams in all of college basketball. Definitely could have used another big man, that's for sure, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they're pissed they don't have him anymore. I guarantee you, watching what he's done this season. So
yeah, I mean, from all the people that were complaining of, hey, just another guy who has a sixth or a seventh year of college basketball because of waivers. It did work out for A&M this season. I mean, what else were they going to do, right? They had to backfill an entire roster. So pretty dang good from a guy who pretty much everybody was doubting coming into the season would or would not play.
Yeah, and I mean, really kind of the savior of this season in a way because we, after losing Mackenzie Mbako and not having any bit of size, somebody had to step up, in the middle, and this was, having to transition to small ball because you just literally did not have the size to compete the way you wanted to. It's an incredible showing, and he has stepped up in every way possible. He's stepped up as a shooter as well because we heard pretty much in the early parts of SEC play when he would attempt threes, missing nearly every one outside of making the kind of random one in the middle of a game or late in the game. I mean, those two clutch threes just showed he's willing to do anything for this team to win a game. And the biggest goal this season was to get to the NCAA tournament. Getting to the SEC tournament. So McMillan made an appearance on Wake Up Barstool today. It was actually a really funny interview, and they were kind of saying, like, it must be nice to be at A&M and, you win 21 games, you win 11 games in conference play, and now you can kind of just wait and see where you're going to end up in the tournament. And when you're a mid-major, you have to win your conference tournament every year, just make it, get an automatic bid. He's just talking about, I kind of think that the top team that finishes, atop of their conference in the regular season just deserves a shot, but that kind of takes away the magic of March. But at the same time, it must be nice for someone who's coaching Stanford for all those years to just – because this is a fatigue team. We should say that. And I mean, I think this is the biggest point we should say is that they play, they actually got a first round bye with that win. They finished the season tied for fourth. I think it's the highest in 30 years for a first year head coach in a Power 4 conference to finish that high. Opposing fan bases and people just like to poke fun, made fun of A&M's tweet this week, kind of talking about that.
Context, right?
Context is everything. And it's incredible. If you're not following, and a lot of people, there are a lot of 5%ers out there that you don't care about basketball much that are coming into the season late who kind of go, wow, that's pretty cool, right? You and I have been following the journey since he got hired last April. It's something you should cheer on because nobody picked this team to make the NCAA tournament. Nobody picked this team to finish in the top 10 of the SEC, picked 13th with like a below a 35% chance to make March Madness. So incredible job. But I think we should say this is a fatigue team. They're tired. So if they don't show up the way you think they should against a desperate Oklahoma team that's most likely going to beat, well, I shouldn't say that. And it's anybody's game in the SEC tournament on Thursday night. If they do play an Oklahoma team that they have beaten twice, if they lose that game, I don't think it matters. And it actually might be beneficial because if they drop to a 10 seed, that's favorable. I do not want them to get the 9 seed because then you'd have to face a number 1 seed if you get past the first round. No bueno, not something you want to see. They've kind of been screwed that way the last 2 or 3 tournament appearances under Buzz Williams. So I wasn't a big fan of that. Either way, it's just a huge achievement. I think it's very exciting, and it does do a lot for the program. I'll say it today. Bucky McMillan, a couple players, Rylan Griffin actually spoke about that today. He said, we're excited to go to the NCAA tournament. I've been before, but a lot of these guys haven't, including Rashawn Agee. But this is also big for the program at large, and it's going to help everything in terms of recruiting, in terms of getting guys in the portal. And these guys, like we've seen with even players who were transfers to A&M that lasted 2, 3, even 1 year, stay connected to Texas A&M going forward. We've seen that with guys like Anderson Garcia, Henry Coleman, Wade Taylor. Wade Taylor was a recruit, so he's truly an Aggie through and through. But they're just enamored by the culture and everything that A&M brings, and they're going to be cheering this program on for years to come. And we really hope that this could end up being a magical postseason run because, personally, yes, they don't have the size. Teams who have played them before can kind of figure them out a bit. They have to shoot very, very well to withstand that size difference against certain teams. But at the same time, he said, we're going to keep playing extremely aggressive and we're going to keep doing what we do. And there's going to be a lot of teams we play that don't know what we do very well. So, and we've seen that in the tournament. I think back to like Oregon State in years past, that was very random. They won the Pac-12. So rest in peace. But it made it to the Sweet 16. Nobody saw that team coming. I think A&M's kind of in that area because unless you were really paying attention to SEC basketball, I think a lot of other people are not paying attention to A&M. So if they kind of sneak in there, they have a chance.
Yeah. They definitely could have a chance, and you're definitely wanting to avoid that 8 or 9 seed matchup because you don't really want to get that 1 seed in the next round if you were to win. But the achievement that they've had this first year where you are able to get into the tournament, and we think they're off the bubble safely as of right now. Yes. A lot of people can go back and forth about it. It's just our opinion right now. So,
they have a 99% chance to make the tournament per Bartorvik. I think they have I think it's all in the 90, 95.
It's a lot of it is dependent on bid sealers in these conferences, whether it's the mid-majors or even some of the bid sealers, maybe from the ACC, like a Florida State or someone else who kind of sneaks in at the last second. So definitely keep watch on these conference tournaments. We're already getting some March Madness from these conference tournaments. Hofstra last night was just absolutely insane. So I'm watching adamantly, but this is a college football show. So
Yeah, I will say the last point, because I'll let you transition there. I get what your point is, but like in Joe Lenardi's latest bracket, they're not even in the last 4 buys. So if you're Texas, I'd be more afraid of bid stealers than I would A&M. I think that they have seen that A&M did what they were supposed to do. They finished the season with two quad one wins. The Texas win now on the road early in the season is now a quad 2, which I don't think that really matters much. I don't think it's going to change. But yeah, I personally think like you can't definitively say that for any team outside of the teams who are considered 1 seeds and 2 seeds and 3 seeds, I guess, or maybe a little farther, that anybody's safe, because anybody below that, I guess, is probably like a 6 seed threshold, is considered on the bubble, I guess, according to many. But you and I both believe they're safely in. So
yes, both.
We can finish this. So.
Yeah. Let's move on. I think we got some interesting points to talk to today. I think the first one that'll be a little bit more interesting is something that we missed this past week while we were on, and that's A&M actually got another prediction for a top 2027 target, and this one being 5-star wide receiver Eric McFarland out of Las Vegas. So Bishop Gorman. So Eric McFarland is as elite and as speedy as one of the wide receivers as I've seen in my time covering A&M and, recruiting. And he is one of the guys who, despite his stature, I think he stands right around 5'10", 5'9". He is absolutely electric with the ball in his hands. So with a team who just had Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver this past year, who, as long as you got the ball to them, they were able to make a play. This makes a lot of sense for the wide receivers that Holman Wiggins has had onto him, dating back to his time with Devonta Smith at Alabama. So keep an eye on Eric McFarland as we go forward into the summer.
Yeah, actually, this happened, I think, after our show on Wednesday, and I think I texted you, we missed out on that. It just kind of happened, I think, during when we were recording. But yeah, this is one of the best playmakers in the country for a reason, and I think that A&M, because of the season they had with Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, has helped recruit these type of athletes, because this is not a 6'4", boundary guy who's a 50-50 ball guy. Somebody like Aaron Gregory, for example, A&M's incoming freshman. We're gonna touch on him actually a little later in the show. That is just an all-around elite wide receiver. This is a gadget player. But this is also somebody who could end up having like an Anais Smith type career with A&M, but even better, because he is considered a more talented player at that size and can pretty much do everything. And he would be an immediate impact player on special teams as a punt returner, kick returner. So, if they can land him, A&M's 27 class is going to finish number 1. I truly believe that, with the other guys we do believe are going to commit. And B, this does show that Holman Wiggins, even transitioning to offensive coordinator, is still having a huge impact recruiting wide receivers.
Yeah, and this one is far from over, right? I mean, we would be...
That's a good sign.
We would be idiots if we sat here and said, oh, yeah, we're just sitting on a commitment from Eric McFarland, and this is what it is. No, that's not what we're saying. Eric McFarland has a whole list of suitors going from USC to Ohio State. All other teams are trying to get more into the picture, and A&M has done a very good job of recruiting McFarland, Holman Wiggins especially, with the offense that he's been able to prove on the field with Colin Klein this past year. Now he's moving on up. So look for McFarland and a whole host of other wide receivers to visit over the summer for official visits. I think another one that actually came out today, not necessarily a prediction, but someone you and I have been following for a while, and someone who they are very much in on, is 5-star running back Landon Williams-Callis. And he has cut his list to 15 programs who are catching his eye the most. Now, this is not one of those, hey, I'm taking a visit to every single one of these schools, but these are the schools that are recruiting him the hardest, right? I think you see a whole list of suitors from Oregon all over the country down all the way toward Houston and A&M. And a lot of these programs have just shown him the most love. And Landon Williams-Callis is not that, vocal a guy when it comes to his recruitment. So a lot of the stuff isn't necessarily falling on deaf ears, but it is more, hey, it's kept close to the vest. But from all the other sources I've talked to, it sounds like Aggies have positioned themselves well to get a official visit from Landon Williams-Gallis here soon over the summer. So keep an eye on this one as the Aggies inch closer and closer to try and landing the top 2027 class.
Yeah, just extremely productive. Probably the most productive running back in the class. Probably about 5'8". He's not the biggest guy, but again, he's a running back, so I don't think it really matters if you're below like the 5'10" threshold. You know, you're considered average size, so you're going to fit in whatever system. He is a powerful runner. He's extremely athletic. And again, this is somebody who last year finished with 3,502 rushing yards, 59 touchdowns, averaged 10.8 yards per carry. Also caught, I think it was like almost 30 passes for over 260 yards. And so very versatile back.
He's a workhorse.
He's a workhorse. It's a great great way to put it. And you can see all these programs. I mean, you look at Indiana won the national championship last year. Alabama consistently recruits these type of running backs at a high level. Ohio State has done a good job. Texas, even though some of them have not panned out, has done a good job recruiting these guys. Florida, for example, getting guys like Jaden Baugh over the last couple of years that have turned out to be stars. And even though Williams-Gallis is considered a 5-star prospect, it's kind of hard with these running backs. A lot of it, like KJ Edwards, obviously incoming freshman for Texas A&M. I wouldn't say they're similar, but they are smaller backs that utilize speed and agility in the open field, and they are very versatile pass catchers. Those are the type of guys who end up becoming every down starters and guys that you can rely on in every package. So he is going to be somebody A&M is going to be in on throughout the process. It is going to be interesting because this is a top 15. We talked about the show that I think he's just taking advantage of every visit he can take. And I believe that probably a summer OV with A&M is in the works, I would think, because if he was going to come in, spring, May, whatever, I think they probably would have scheduled that already. But I think he's still kind of working everything out, talking with coaches, and kind of figuring out the best routes going forward, because there's a lot of programs on that list. And I don't think everybody's going to get a visit, but we'll see. He's going to be making a lot of trips. He has a top 15, and he hasn't kind of whittled that down. But I do believe when he does start to whittle down things and get to like a top 6, top 5, A&M's going to continue to be there, because they did receive a prediction to land him back in October after he visited. I forget which game that was. It was October 7th, I think. But yeah, I think it was Steve Wilfong who submitted his prediction. So that is a good sign. It's the same with John Meredith, 5-star cornerback. He got a prediction to commit to A&M. These are just early predictions. Eric McFarland's the same way. It's a good sign. It means that A&M has made progress, but we're not going to sit here and say A&M is definitely going to land all three of these guys. This is not how it works. Predictions are really about feel. It's about recent discussions. You are in the industry as well, so you had those with agents, stuff like that. Like, you feel a guy out, but at the end of the day, it goes back to Brandon Arrington, A&M's 5-star cornerback, incoming freshman, who, when he committed, it was off of a fishing trip. Mm-hmm. And his relationship with now current Kansas State defensive coordinator Jordan Peterson, and obviously that closeness with A&M and his family. So we don't know what's going to happen until the final weeks before these guys announce a commitment decision. So it's kind of all up there, but it's a good sign. It's good things to come, hopefully.
It's very good, but just keep an eye on it, guys, because, these recruitments are always fluid. I mean, it could be another program that just comes out of the blue. Like you said, Indiana has been, trying to turn up the Jets for a lot of players. I mean, we've talked about it before where, Jalen Brewster, the number 1 defensive tackle in the nation, is originally from Indiana, even though he's down here in Texas. So while he's committed to Texas Tech, I do think that Indiana could be one of the teams where it's just all in on someone like him, or maybe even Williams-Gallis now that he's narrowed his search. So
yeah, and you kind of look what Indiana has done in the running game with under-recruited backs and transfer backs. And I mean, that's all coaching and that's development. So I always kind of look at it, and our buddy Robert Behrens had that conversation about the recruiting, about 4-star recruits and how they kind of pan out and stuff like that at the next level. It's like a pretty high percentage. those rankings do matter. We've seen the random 3-star. I think Jaden Baugh actually is a great example of that. Running back is interesting because there are a lot of 3-star running backs. You can look like the past 10, 15 years that ended up playing in the NFL because it's such a weird position in terms of rating these guys and differentiating how much better they are than everybody else. Ruben Owens was a 5-star prospect. That was mainly because he was kind of built like a wide receiver in a way, and he's just a big body dude who runs like a gazelle and was just freakishly productive, and they end getting that 5th star. But Indiana can just show all these guys, all these highly ranked recruits, like this is what we did with the guy who was like a 2-star recruit. Look at him now. So it's a good pitch. A&M can do that too. They've had a lot of success in the past developing these type of running backs, but I think that Ruben Owens' season, his final season in 2026, is going to be very important to recruiting. If he finally pans out and turns into that back, maybe rushes for over 1,000 yards, that's going to help recruiting because they're going to have that in film to sell. Like, look, he stayed in the program long term, and look what he did in his final year. So it's interesting how it all works in terms of kind of getting these guys to lean your way. And he's definitely a prospect that's going to consider Indiana, I think, down the stretch. So it is interesting just based on recent success. But look, Alabama, I think, is going to be a real player there. They've been in on him, but A&M is. I'm telling you, they're in on everybody at this point. So I don't really count them out of any recruit they've approached so far. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
And you mentioned stuff that, kind of we're supposed to be leaning on, going into your stuff to lean your way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've had a couple of talks over, the off season so far of like, well, are we going to have, this guy lean our way with this prediction going here? Are we going to have, or is A&M going to be able to lean back over in this direction because maybe they're putting too many eggs in one basket, right? Do you feel like for this 2027 class, because we've heralded it as something where the Aggies have the chance to get the number 1 class, right? Up there with Oklahoma, Ohio State, Alabama, like you just said, someone along those lines. Do you think that there's a position group where they could be like spread too thin right now? Because we're seeing them in all these baskets right now. It feels like every day we're seeing A&M come out in another graphic where they're in it. Maybe it is a top 15 for a guy like Landon Williams-Callis, or someone who you may have been like, hey, I had totally forgotten that they were consistently recruiting that guy. Do you think that there's maybe a position group, or like just overall, do you think that they might be overstretching themselves? Or do you think that they are actively trying to get every single person they can because of maybe the roster limits going up to 105?
So I think right now it's kind of hard to gauge what they're focused on because 7 of their 10 commitments are on defense, and a lot of focus is on defensive line. The secondary, obviously, you have Cameron Dorsey, who is now a 5-star prospect, who's considered the top safety in the country. He actually spoke the other day, talking. He's just locked in with A&M. He's only considering A&M. He may consider a couple other schools, including Ohio State and Georgia, down the line if that comes to fruition. But there is an elevated focus there for a reason, because they feel like that position, safety specifically, they have to recruit at the high level because they want to develop there, because they have seen in the past that guys like Dalton Brooks, who's coming into his final year with A&M, he's developed the program. He's become a complete safety. He probably had his best season last year, poised to have his best season this year. It is a position that you have to also gain from the transfer portal, get some veteran guys. Taufik Bayard is a guy they brought in that could potentially be one of their starting safeties this year. So the transfer portal is a big part of that as well. But I think with Elko, as long as he's head coach and as long as he's defensive play caller and Lyle Hemphel's there as defensive coordinator, their discussions are always going to be around build the defense first. We have a ton of O-linemen that we recruited in the 24 and 25 signing class. So those guys are growing through the program. We do feel like we can easily get out of the transfer portal like they did when they lost 4 to 5 starters from last year's O-line group to the NFL draft. They went out, got 4 starting level SEC O-linemen. So they don't feel like we have to panic recruit there. We're just going to get the best players we feel are good fits for our system and for our team. And so I don't know if – look, you could talk about quarterback, right? I think that is a position because Jace Johnson is not a for sure thing. because he's getting better and better, and everybody's noticing now. So it is going to be hard to keep him in the fold. There's been a lot of interviews he's done where he's like, well, yeah, I'm firmly committed to A&M right now, but I'm going to be taking these visits. And, no coach wants to hear that. They want to hear like, you're
locked in, right?
Locked in. And we've heard that from a majority, I would say. You look at Raylon Henry, for example. He's also said, like, I'm 100% committed to A&M. Again, this is one of the more elite cornerbacks, probably going to be a 5-star at the end of his recruitment. That's a good sign when these elite blue chip talents are saying, I'm locked in. The quarterback is such a weird position because these guys can end up becoming elite prospects at the end of their high school career. Before like their sophomore, junior season, they were kind of considered like mid-level guys, but just all of a sudden they take this big jump. And A&M's quarterback future is, I don't know, man. It's kind of up and down because you look at the roster now. I mean, this is likely Marcel Reed's final season. We kind of think that right now, especially if he has a good season. I could easily see him going to the NFL. If he has like a complete season, A&M gets like the second round or third round or whatever far in the CFP, and he's a big reason why I don't see him coming back. And then you go into that year in 27 offseason thinking, okay, is Hellman Kasuga our guy? Do we kind of look down our depth chart? Is he there? Do we have to go to the transfer portal to get someone, or do we focus more on recruiting? So I think that's the biggest question they have, because we've seen with A&M, wide receivers not been a problem in terms of recruiting. They just brought in 4 of the top wide receivers in the 26 signing class. They've done a very good job. We just talked about Eric McFarland as a guy that is potential commit. I think as long as Holman Wiggins is with the program, no matter his title, he's always going to be recruiting at a high level at that position. Tight end, I don't think is going to be a problem. There's going to be a guy we're going to talk about as one of their freshmen coming in. So A&M's been kind of a stalwart program in terms of recruiting specific positions, but quarterback has thwarted them in the past. And since Johnny Manziel, to be honest with you, it's been up and down. Marcel Reed, to be perfectly clear, has been the most consistent guy so far, which is kind of crazy because we go back to all the injury issues, the Haynes King years, even the Kyle Allen years. And, you've got to have a plan for the future. And I think Elko knows that. So if Jace Johnson does end up signing with them, I think they're in a much better position, because then you've got a guy that you feel like is going to be the next option in the future. But not really in terms of recruiting, because we're talking about like future recruiting. When Marcel, whenever he does leave, you're going to have to go to the transfer portal and get somebody, I believe, and you're going to have to spend some money there. But at least you'll have a backup plan, because I don't think Hellman Kasuga personally is going to be ready to take over in 27. I don't think that there's a guy on the roster right now outside of Marcel Reed that could start for this team. So,
but again, be very surprised come spring, and Brady Hart has stepped up to be.
That's another guy right
behind him, right?
Because I personally think he's going to be their number 2 this year. I think that he's going to take that. That there's a reason that he committed. I mean, he's one of the younger players in college football. I think he's like 18, 19 years old. He's pretty young.
He's very young.
But he's someone they're very high on, like very cerebral player, great arm, accurate. Someone they feel isn't just going to stand in the pocket like a statue. He's a playmaker. So he is somebody that I think the program is very high on. But if he doesn't pan out, but they'll know that, I think, through camp. I think they're going to find that in fall camp, because I personally think that spring is going to show us a little bit. We're about to get to that. Talk the rest of the show about that. Especially at quarterback, because we know what Marcel Reed brings. There are little things he has to work on. But I was talking to somebody the other day about that. They were just talking about, man, what are you guys going to talk about all offseason? It's just going to be Marcel Reed. It's like, no, because there's only so much you can talk about, because you watched him now in 2 starting seasons, and we know what he has to work on. And you just talk about it ad nauseum. But I am more interested in guys like Brady Hart. What step has he taken in terms of maturity, in terms of understanding this offense, in terms of understanding Holman Wiggins' offense, and working with Joey Lynch? How impactful is he going to be in his progress? But really, to wrap up your question, that was a great question. It's probably why I'm talking a lot. I think that in terms of every position right now, linebacker is something else I think they need to do a better job of recruiting. I think obviously getting Ray Coney through the transfer portal is going to be immediate help. But nobody knew that Damian Sanford was going to turn into the player he is now. I'm going to be honest with you. Didn't see that coming, but that's a testament to their ability to develop. And he's even a better athlete I thought he was. So That's awesome. Torin York is a once-in-a-lifetime type of recruit that's going to end up being that good as a 3-star prospect. That just does not happen, especially at this level. So I think they need to do a better job of recruiting these guys at a high level. They already did that in the 26 signing class, signing 3 linebackers and one that's kind of a linebacker, kind of a hybrid safety. But I just think that if there is an elite linebacker out there, I'm thinking of the Texas freshman Tyler Atkinson, right? Guys like
out there,
guys like that, right? If you can get in on guys like that early, those are kind of game-changing, immediate impact players. And I think linebackers are such an important position to your entire defense, not just the run defense, but obviously that kind of middle pass game and defending tight ends and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so there are probably those 2 positions, but quarterback's always going to be the biggest question because year in and year out, because of the portal, you just never know, right? Because of that and the NFL draft.
No, and I think it's important, and I love your response too, that I was thinking while you were talking, and I realized that now that they're in year 3, we were talking even back in year 1, right? Where that 2025, we'll say, was the first actual class because he had to help keep together that 24 class with guys like Terry Bussey and guys right at the end. But that 25 class, I go back and look at it, and they were recruiting more of the athletes rather than the specific players, maybe. Oh, for the most part, right? I know we can talk about Jerome Miles being specifically that big body wide receiver that they wanted, but I go down the list, and it's like, well, DJ Sanders was a great eval right away. I mean, DJ Sanders and a guy like Chase Sims both were huge risers in that 2025 class, going from, lower 3 and 4 stars to higher 4 stars by the end of the cycle. And we've talked, tooth and nail about, guys like Keaontay Armstrong and Marco Jones for the most part, right? I mean, Marco Jones saw a bunch of play in year 1.
Oh, yeah.
So it's more of those athletes. And now maybe when they're going to the 2027 class, maybe you can dip your toe a little bit more into the bona fide refined athlete of positional value, right?
Yeah, because kind of looking at that list, you think of Hakeem Frampton, right?
Yeah.
That's just a standout athlete. They think he's going to be a cornerback at the next level, but he can pretty much do everything. So he is somebody who there's a reason why the guys who know, like yourself and others who just know ball, who don't look at the recruiting rankings and the stars and all that stuff and just think, okay, I'm just going to watch this guy because he's a 5-star. You shouldn't be in this industry. That's what you do. But this is somebody who is highly coveted. He's just going to keep rising in his ranking. Kaden McCartney is another guy who's a little bit of an undersized edge rusher, but he is as pure as it gets.
He's a pure speed rusher.
Yeah, just a speed rusher, right? And he was dominating at the Rivals Houston camp this weekend. Just is beautiful. I'm going to be honest. Just his pass rush moves, his fluidness, his bend. That's someone I'm very excited about. And Jaquan Snell, who
hardest hitting safety in 2027.
One of the best. I mean, if you just like good football and just brutal hits, just watch him on a reel. I mean,
we are sorry to all the parents of freshmen and sophomores who have their kids sent to the hospital.
And even in practice, I mean, this is a guy who's 6'3", 198. So he's not going to be 198 at the next level. Could end up being 6'4" at this point.
But he has pop.
As soon as he signs with A&M, if he signs with A&M, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be talking about him like an immediate starter. If based on their kind of safety rotation, what it looks like.
If Jake Snell looks at this, know you have Cameron as your number 1 fan right now.
Yeah, I love this kid. So he's incredible, and Waxahachie, which is awesome. I love that he's from there. But I completely agree with you. Athlete over specific position, because in terms of like safety and corner, a lot of these guys are like former wide receivers, running backs sometimes. It's really fascinating because in terms of using your athletic gifts, you can play a lot of different positions. We were talking about Dalton Brooks obviously being that type of player. So I think that they are prioritizing that. But at the same time, when you can get in on guys like Raylon Henry, who actually, I think he played Helman Kasuga's team in that championship game, and he was all over the field, just an incredible athlete as well. Miles Smith is another guy, very interesting interior pass rusher. There's a lot of potential here, and I mean they're not even close to being done. But I agree with you. I think that he's done that a lot in the past 2 classes because it's kind of hard to judge the 24 class because it was a desperate effort to keep the guys you needed committed and ultimately signing. That was a kind of a last ditch effort for Elka to kind of look over. There were probably some players in that class that he was kind of like, they're not perfect fits, but we'll figure it out, right? That's just how it is when you are taking over a program. But either way, yeah, that's a lot of more good than bad. I just think that A&M is one of the few programs, especially even in the SEC, that is going to consistently be a favorite to land every top recruit they go after. And if they don't land at the end, it is what it is. But they were finalists, they were doing everything, and they were doing it the right way. And I think Elko's had that approach, and he's going to continue to have that approach. And it's gonna pay off because there's a reason all these big analysts, as much as Texas fans and others kind of poo-poo it and go, well, they haven't done it yet, so whatever, always look at A&M as a potential team to win a national championship one day because of the way Mike Elko's taken over this program in combination with Trev Alberts kind of managing all the business ends of stuff. They're utilizing NIL the way you should, the way that's not toxic, I think. They're just doing what's allowed, and they're just continuing to kick butt on the recruiting trail. And I mean, build the recruiting, utilize transfer portal, and you're going to end up winning a national title one day because that's what the best team. That's what Indiana did. That's how they won a national championship because they brought in a bunch of portal guys that were culture fits. But right now they're doing the same approach. We recruit at a high level. We know we can now because we're on the national stage. This coaching staff is elite, and these recruits know we can win a title. We can compete for Big Ten championships. So, but A&M is pretty much in that same, even though they haven't won it yet. And again, we're going to be previewing spring football, so we'll talk about why. But it's the same kind of trajectory there, in my opinion. So
yeah, in speaking with you said the Big Ten and SEC championships. Right now we have NCAA basketball going on. So what better time to introduce our sponsor for the show, Underdog, right? I mean, they have a whole load of picks right now where you can go on their site and use our code VOCFB Aggies to, just get a little bit more money in your pocket if you really win. If you win, you could win up to 1,000 times your money. And with all the March Madness that's going on, Big Ten championships, like you mentioned, even though it is basketball for March, you can go on there and they have a whole load of player props that you can pick from. You just pick higher or lower on their players or pick their games that they have for you. You just place $5 on there, use our code VOCFB Aggies. You actually get $50 right into your account as bonus so you can use and play to your heart's content. So go on Underdog, our sponsor, VOCFB Aggies. Go ahead and input that code, and you'll get $50 right into your account.
And if you have a gambling problem, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. So yeah, we're going to move on. We're going to be doing this for the next couple of weeks, just kind of previewing positions, previewing just, offense, defense, like that. We're going to start off because spring, like I said, the spring football season is 10 days away. We're going to start with some freshmen to focus on. We've already done this before, but I think you and I kind of went through the list, and you got to kind of be reacquainted with the rosters. A lot of guys coming over, 25 enrollees, 26 total. Evan Jacobson, their tight end signing, I think he's coming in the summer, so he's the last kind of pieces of this class to get to College Station. But so starting on offense, there was an article by ESPN. It was talking about the top newcomers to come in, and they could really pick anybody because there's a ton of elite talent. For defense, obviously they're looking at a guy like Brandon Harrington, for example, that could end up finding his way on the field pretty quickly just because of his elite skill set. But they centered on running back KJ Edwards, who A&M flipped from Texas last summer. You and I are both very, very high on this kid. He was an incredible high school athlete. I think he did win he won a state championship during his final senior season, I believe.
I do want to preface, I don't think they flipped him from Texas at any
point. No, sorry. Duh. He didn't flip from Texas. He was committed to Texas.
KJ?
Yeah. He was going to commit to Texas, canceled his visit. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I'm spreading propaganda. He was going to visit Texas.
He was predicted to Texas.
Yeah. Take over at this point. No, but either way, We believe that because the running back room now has an opening for a guy like that who is 5'10", 180, kind of a smaller back, but is probably quicker, faster, just a better overall athlete than anybody they have in the roster that is including Ruben Owens, who we believe is going to try to be more of a power back this season. I think he's going to have to take over that role in a way. Personally, that's what I think. I mean, Mike Elko and them could say something else, but they're going to need that, and they don't know if they can rely on a guy like Tiger Ridden to take those type of snaps in those situations where you got to have 5-6 yards. You got to pick up those important downs, and you've got to be that that running back in situations where, it's a tie game. You need to be on the field during blocking situations. You're not just kind of a versatile guy. I mean, he had problems even catching the ball last season. So there's a lot that Owens has to work on, but there is a safety valve because they do believe that KJ Edwards is that type of change of pace type of back who in the right situation can be extremely explosive and be one of the better playmakers for your roster. So he's my number one. And I don't know if we're going to see a ton of him this spring. That's to be determined because we have seen in the past that some guys do sit out for injury reasons. They just don't want to put wear and tear when they don't need to, get to the summer and then obviously ready for fall camp. But if we do see him, I think we're going to see him get a ton of snaps in the maroon and white game because I think that Elko is kind of looking at his running back roster and his running back depth chart, and I don't think he sees a lot of holes there, but I think he sees a lot of potential with what Edwards can bring because we've seen in years past with the programs that running back is one of those positions that guys can play immediately, especially if they're blocking in front of them, right? Because they don't need like a year or two to get assimilated with the scheme and all that. If you're a great athlete, we saw that with Ruben Owens during his freshman season. He rushed for over 300 yards, I think. Now, granted, that was kind of a lost season for them, but he still was on the field a ton, especially at the end of the year. So, personally, I think that Edwards really stands out among anybody else for the offensive side of the signing class.
Edwards, for sure, was a guy that came to mind when we were discussing topics for this show today, and the freshman came up. It's just like, hey, KJ Edwards is a guy. He's just a guy. So, yes, I could see, especially because they take such pride. A&M takes such pride in being able to use, one running back, two running back sets with how many guys they have on the roster currently. Even though there were some rumors during the portal and even some reports that came out that A&M was going to host, a visitor of a running back or two, right?
Yeah.
So with that, they have guys who have been on the roster for 2+ seasons now, and Ruben Owens is the veteran, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had 3 guys go out in Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss and Emmitt Smith, the fourth. But you have guys now who are willing and able to step up, whether that's a Tiger Ryden, who I've heard pretty good reports about already, just looking good in the offseason program. We'll have no idea, like you said, until the spring practices are actually there and then a spring game in April. But KJ Edwards could be someone who sees a lot of use, like the reports that we had last year where Jamarian Mora was turning heads already in spring practices, and we did see him on the field. He was a playmaker. I think back to a couple of the games, especially the Florida one where he had a little corner out to get in the end zone, right? He was able to be utilized in the pass game, and that's such a plus for this roster going forward because Holman Wiggins is year one as a full-time offensive coordinator. You need to have these running backs who have the pass catching ability because it just provides another facet to their offense and another release valve for Marcel Reed going into year 3 under Mike Elko.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We have no idea because it's very hard. And you are right. Like Jamarian Mora was one of those guys who really caught everybody's attention, and he just looked kind of that bowling ball type running back, that guy who could really end up being a dude like a Devion Achane type of player. I can't pronounce his name anymore. Devon, yeah. Well, no, the Achane part. It's a chain. Either way. But there's a lot of potential there, but at the same time, size, physicality, that hard-nosed running style has been an issue. They don't know if they have that. We did say like Tiger Ridden is a guy they believe can be that type of back, but at the same time, he's just not proven yet. My theory with Ruben Owens is that he does have the frame to really add more weight and muscle and get a very strong lower body. And he's already I would say he's pretty physical. Like he's willing to take hits. He just wasn't really built that way, and he was really getting back to himself last season. So now he has a full season under his belt, had a lot of over 500 plus yards, had some great games against Missouri. I think his most yardage was against Mississippi State. So he's not in prove it mode all the time, like he was going into the 25 season. So I think if he was willing to kind of change his running style a bit, and we talk about he needs to work on A, B, and C, especially like he tripped a lot. And that was really weird, right? Especially in the Texas game where there were a lot of times when they could have picked up a first down on a swing route and he just tripped on his own feet. And a lot of the fan base is just kind of like very confused, looking at like he's a great athlete. How is he tripping? So I don't know. I mean, you fix tripping. I mean, that's just a little random physical.
Get some better spikes, man.
I guess, yeah. I mean, right. So, but at the same time, we've seen him at his highest level. But if he can get bigger, he can get stronger. Lower body strength is everything as a running back. So if you can do that, he's already got pretty good vision. He's got pretty good footwork. He could end up being that powerful runner. And if KJ Edwards and Jamarian Morrow end up being those speed guys for you, you've got a great running back for him already. And then DeAndre Ridden just kind of provides more depth. Carson Baker is another guy. I don't think he's going to be a huge impact guy this year. I think they're going to keep him in the program, develop him. He's got a ton of potential. I just don't think he's ready to take a ton of snaps. We might see him early in the season. If they're blowing out an opponent, he can get on the field. But either way, I think it all depends on Ruben Owens, maturity and his willing to change a little bit and reach his best self, I guess, as a football player. Because we know it's there, right? We saw this kid in high school. We've seen the last 2 years. He's dealt with a lot of injury issues. But he's got what it takes to be a star running back. It's just now having KJ Edwards, I think that's the reason why Elko was willing to go in the offseason, not land a transfer back. He feels pretty good about this group overall.
Yeah. I think even though we've talked about the offense a lot, people underestimate just how good some freshmen, like people on the line, could be, even though we are projecting that the offensive line they went into the portal for. But if you're looking for big bodies, you could put another personnel out there where it's a guy like a true freshman, KK Johnson, could be out there as a lead blocker. I mean, he is absolutely massive. He is huge. I mean, he played QB, quarterback, and he is just absolutely huge. That was one where it was a really, really quiet eval, and they were able to get it done really quickly. I know Auburn was lurking over the fall because that's where his dad played, his dad's alma mater. But A&M was able to keep him in the fold. He locked it down and said, hey, I'm committed to A&M. They've prioritized me. I love it here. And he is someone that I really do think if we see or hear a bunch of things out of spring camp and spring practice that, hey, he's flashed, that's someone where it's just like, hey, we warned you already.
Yeah, and you look at the tight end room, which is very interesting because Houston Thomas, I think, is your starter. He is your starting tight end. He is your pass-catching tight end. He is going to become what they thought Theo May-Lindstrom was going to be. Just never really panned out that well. Obviously, ended the transfer portal, transfer to SMU. But there's a reason Thomas was highly regarded out of transfer portal. Obviously, his previous relationship with Mike Elko, graduating with his son from high school. But he is that guy who's going to take over that tight end room. But who's behind him, right? We talk about Coley Armstrong. We talk about Micah Riley, who's kind of an interesting player who was a very highly regarded recruit going to Auburn, transferring to the program last season. More of a blocker, but wants to transition into becoming like a blocker pass catcher, like overall, useful tight end that's just not on the field for rundowns. But I think you're right. This kid is an incredible athlete. The fact that he was rising rapidly up the recruiting rankings, and A&M was in fear of actually losing him to Auburn for a little bit, but he canceled his visit, signed with the Aggies, and he is somebody that I think you and a couple other guys in the industry are very, very high. Jackson Callaway is somebody else. Our buddy from On3 is very, very high on this kid. So I could easily see him. But another tight end, Caleb Tafua, who I talked about for the show. I love this kid. He was an excellent volleyball player. We've seen how that type of athleticism transitions. Mike Elko actually praised him. I think it was early back in December or something. I forget. I have to go find that.
I think it was right after signing.
And I think it was right after signing day. And he just said, yeah, this this kid could end up being one of the best receiving tight ends in the country over the next two to 3 seasons. And I could totally see that because I've seen volleyball players in the past transition to play tight end, wide receiver. They have incredible hands. I mean, their hand-eye coordination is top level. I mean, we saw the Aggie volleyball team win the national championship and just how skilled those young ladies are. I mean, I love it personally. I don't know if he's going to really make a jump this season because I think KK Johnson's just a bigger guy and he can kind of brings more to the field. But I think you and I can both agree that Aaron Gregory, A&M's 4-star, I consider him a 5-star wide receiver signing.
You can have your own personal opinions.
Yeah, I consider him a 5-star signing. I think he's that good. I think that if they didn't sign Isaiah Horton from the transfer portal, Gregory probably would have been someone we would talk about a potential starter at the X position, kind of battling with Jerome Miles, who's coming back from injury. This kid is just insanely talented. He's somebody who has Cam Coleman-like ability. We'll see how it pans out. Cam Coleman was kind of a freak of nature in terms of
that's fighting words right there, Cameron.
Yeah. I watched the film. I've kind of compared him to, I mean, Cam Coleman is a next level type of athlete, and Texas is going to benefit from that this season. But I think Gregory's got a ton of immediate potential. But he is somebody, especially if injuries happen, knock on wood. It's really nice to have him, Madam Williams. Sorry about that.
Mike Brown.
I'm sorry, no, got a text. Jaden Warren is another guy that's highly talented. So having that depth at that position is crucial because you just never know what's going to happen. But I think we both agree that on defensive line, when it comes to Bryce Perry-Wright, Trishan Gibbons, these are two guys who I think Elko is extremely high on, and they feel that even though they landed Anto Saka from the transfer portal, they know that Marco Jones is going to compete for that starting spot, that Cassius Howell replacement. Depth is everything. They feel like these guys just bring immediate impact, especially off the edge. Trishan Gibbons is one of the best athletes in the class. Overall, we were just talking about athleticism. There's a reason he was a 5-star prospect because of his athleticism. And you saw what Marco Jones could bring to you as a depth piece, which is a lot. He had 2.5 sacks for 21 tackles, and that was a loaded defensive line room. There's some unknowns there. There's a ton of talent, but we just don't know how everything's going to pan out. So I think that both those guys could end up seeing more time than a lot of people expect.
Yeah, I think I'm super excited to watch what Bryce Perry-Wright does for this spring because he's someone I was incredibly high on going into the fall as a target for A&M and someone that they were able to land, early in the summer. So summer, fall, whatever month it is.
Yeah, I think it was fall. I think because I think it was like late summer, fall. We got a lot of recruiting stuff that happened back then. So that was a whirlwind of summer. So,
but Bryce Perry-Wright is the guy that I think could have the biggest upside in his freshman year, just because of his physical frame already. If he just fills it out just a little bit more in the strength and conditioning program, I think that you could have a monster on your hands. Again, like how we heralded DJ Hicks coming out of high school in that 22 season, I think he could be one of those bigger body guys who is just a mauler up front.
Yeah, because I think with this class specifically compared to like the 25 signing class, and no offense to the 25 signing class, there'll be a lot of guys who are going to end up competing for big roles this season, but a lot of them were wait and see mode. Like we knew, like Noah McHale, for example, is a great example. He could end up being one of the starting linebackers for A&M this season. That is completely in the cards. We do think he's going to be in the rotation regardless. But he was somebody who, outside of injuries, was not going to start for A&M at linebacker. They were already set at that position. There are several positions, especially in the secondary with the safety rotation. There's nobody. Chance Collins is not going to end up just becoming like a rotational guy with that depth they have right now. It's just not going to happen. He's going to be somebody who's just going to stay and learn and then end up being a contributor in the future. But there are guys at the top end of this class that it's hard to see how they don't see the field, right? And Brendan Arrington obviously is number one on that list because when you watch him in several camps this offseason, when you see him against some of the top-ranked wide receivers who are going to end up being starters for the likes of Ohio State and others, starters, guys who are going to be number 2 wide receivers for these as a freshman, and he's beating them. It's hard to say, like, why would we keep this kid off the field? Bryce Perry Wright's kind of the same. He's the same thing, right? Like there's a reason why. Who was it? It was Clemson, Miami, right? I think it came down to Miami.
Clemson and Miami were the ones battling at the end. Texas was a distant one, but
they were distant. Yeah.
I really do think that as much as like Clemson prides themselves on relationships and building that, and Miami too, for the most part. I mean, you saw how dominant their defensive line was this season.
Yeah.
A&M was just able to make it happen because of the pedigree and the relationships that they were building.
Yeah, and we've seen that in years past. That I mean, going back to like the offensive line, Miami's done a really good job of recruiting in the trenches, which is interesting. It just has to do with Maluga and a couple of the other guys that are going to be drafted and developing these guys. And Carson Beck didn't get sacked a ton last season, and its trajectory thing is the reason why A&M does such a good job at landing elite O-line prospects, and they're always in with these O-line prospects, especially they're in with almost every top O-line prospect in the 27 class right now. There's a reason. It's pedigree, right? So with defensive line, A&M's up there with anybody in terms of developing defensive linemen. So you go back to Matabike, right? That's one of the best examples of somebody who was a 3 to 4 star recruit and Gesundheit. Just made his way up the depth chart. Obviously, Albert Regis is a great story for prospects of somebody who just, kept working and putting in the work into the offseason, working with Tommy Moffitt last offseason, ends up being one of the better starters and one of the more reliable run stops for A&M. So if you are a guy like Bryce Perry Wright, who's considered a 5-star prospect by some, high 4-star prospect by others, 6'2", 250 already, put him in the weight room. He's already in there right now with Tommy Moffitt. Give him a full summer. What do you think? Probably 280?
Maybe like 30 pounds is a drastic.
I'm joking. It's not 30 pounds. They love to do that. That's actually a joke because they always do that. They're like, I was 220. Now I'm 270. I'm like, okay.
We'll call it the freshman 15. Okay.
I'll give you an example. I was someone who weightlifts, was weightlifting for years. I'm about 5'8", 180. I'm like on the BMI scale, I'm fat. So it's like, it doesn't make sense. Like they're like, well, no, you should weigh less than that. I'm like, no, but if you lift weight, muscle weighs more than fat. So, but it's some of these guys like defensive linemen, they're like muscle and fat because they have to have some fat. They have to have that size to push the pocket. Same with the linemen. So if you add a ton of weight, it's kind of like, yeah, it makes sense, right? But at the same time, like I could either easily see if he's 250 now, 265, right? Probably.
Right.
Yeah, about 15 pounds, 10 pounds of muscle. Still a leanish frame, and somebody who, like you said, like DJ Hicks is on the same trajectory, even more so. I just think that the high motor this kid plays with, I mean, he's going to wreck you if you leave him against an undersized O-lineman. There are going to be times in this season, I think, when he's on the field and they're playing maybe in the opener against Missouri State, right? Just an undersized O-lineman, and he's just going to wreck them. I don't care about his age. This kid is a monster in the making. This is somebody who is going to end up being an every down starter, I think, by his sophomore season. So it's going to be very hard, even with some of the depth they do have on defensive line, but guys like TJ Searcy even coming back. It's going to be very, very hard to keep him on the field. So I'm with you. I'm very excited.
I think the last guy we do need to talk about, because he was so heralded, is DB Brandon Arrington. Because of, and this, we left this one for last because he could be someone that could benefit from being redshirted, right? We could see a limited play from him.
Sure, yeah.
Because of the frame that he has already, since he's adjusting to the higher level of competition, we're not doubting that he has the type of elite traits you need from DBs to cover the best wide receivers in college football. But when you are transitioning from a DB to another level, it is tough to get acclimated right immediately. But if he is someone who gets acclimated very, very quickly, you are going to hear about it very, very quickly come out of spring practice, because he is someone that, and I hate to say it, but some of our favorite, times on television is when they say guys like Nick Harbor and other DBs have absolute track speed, right? You get to hear it over and over. Brandon Arrington is one of those guys. He is heralded as
a legit track star. Yeah,
he could be an Olympic hopeful, right? He is championship level track times, and he has amazing arm length for a DB coming out of high school. He gets his head around so quick, right? Coming out of high school, it was a lot of questions coming whether he would be one of the fastest wide receivers in the class or one of the newer types of DBs that we are now used to seeing with guys like Tariq Woolen, who just signed with the Eagles today, right? These larger DBs who are quick with their hands. And I think right now, if he's able to kind of pop in practice, pop in the spring program, you're going to see him a couple of times. But whether that means that he's going to get consistent playing time in year one, I don't know yet. But Elko and the guys are going to put the guys on the field that give them the best chance to win.
I could easily say, like, he's that talented that if you put him at safety this year, he would thrive because of that speed alone. But at the rate of what they need him to be in the future, he could easily benefit from a redshirt year. I don't know, because they do have so much depth at cornerback with Des Ricks coming back. Obviously, Ricky Gibson, we're extremely high on him coming into the program. He could end up being probably their best cornerback, even with Ricks on the field. He's just that talented. Plus, he had a year off of football, so he's completely healthy. He's ready to get back on the field. There's no nagging injuries anymore. Like, he's ready to go, and he's ready to learn the system. He's ready to integrate quickly. You do have some depth episodes. We talked about a guy like Adonis Curry, for example, from the 25 signing class that could end up being a surprise player. That I think he's somebody you have to look for his name in camp, even in spring camp. Like, I'm kind of waiting for this kid to kind of take that next step. But I think it's just going to be based on how they feel about their current starting rotation and their veterans. But if they feel like there's an area where Arrington's athleticism could shine, even his youth could be an issue, right? Because it's true, like, it takes years to acclimate to this game, to the speed of the college game. It's even worse at the NFL level, like with some of those rookies coming in, like having to acclimate to the speed of wide receivers and tight ends even, and just how quick the ball gets out. It's the same here. And so we'll find out, probably not this spring, but in the fall. And if we do hear Arrington's name a lot, it's going to be hard to say, like, okay, we're going to see him some at least. Maybe like a Ruben Owens type of thing, right? We're going to see him late in the season. Maybe they don't care about burning a red shirt, or I don't know. It's going to be up to what their relationship with Arrington. I don't think they fear, like, if they don't play him right away, he's going to enter the transfer portal or something like that. That's also something a lot of people think, like, in today's age, like, you get this elite prospect, even though you've got depth at the position, you have to play him anyways, because if you don't get him on the field, he's going to complain to the coaching staff and be like, you know what, I could have gone here and they need a corner. Like, I don't think that's the case with him. I think he chose A&M because he wants to grow here. So if they do decide, look, we're good at cornerback this year, but next year you're in line to be a starting player for us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a problem. I just think that in terms of defensive linemen, both those guys you mentioned, Bryce Perry and Trishan Gibbons, just have a better chance, because I think this is a year where they can really put a lot of young guys in the field. They have the guys they feel are going to be their starting rotation. They went in the transfer portal. They got those guys. But from a depth perspective, they just think these guys are too talented and mature enough to take on those roles, because, you know, they saw what Marco Jones did last year. They know what Marco Jones is probably going to do this year. So they feel like, why can't we do the same with these guys? Right? Because we think they're as good as Jones was, maybe even better in some areas. But defensive line is very different, because the secondary is very kind of fragile in a way. You gotta field your best guys almost every play, especially when SC play starts. You can't take risks there, because if you allow too many explosive plays, that could be the difference in a game, right? So you can't really take a chance if a guy isn't ready yet at this level. And sometimes it does take 1 year for even a player as elite as Brandon Arrington is to just get used to everything.
Yeah. And it's completely understandable, right?
Yeah.
We're going to keep track of it, especially as spring practices are coming up. Right now, it's a bit of not a quiet period, it's an unofficial quiet period with spring break happening right now. Players and coaches kind of get a little bit of time, right? Mm-hmm. But recruiting never stops. Neither does college football. Neither do Cameron or I.
Literally, yeah. Yeah, but my family makes fun of that all the time. We just never stop.
But yeah, it's a great show. I think you and I have been able to talk about all the stuff that we've kind of heard over the week and all the stuff that we're excited to see. So we should be back next week at 7 p.m. For the show on Tuesday.
NCAA tournament will not mess with anything like that because it does start Thursday, Friday, first round games. So I don't think we're not gonna have any issues there.
We should be good. We should also know A&M's first round matchup by that time. We'll also see how they did in the SEC tournament and a lot of other bid stealers. So we may even know some more things for football recruiting by that time. It'll be an exciting time with a lot of other unofficial visits coming up. So make sure y'all are tuned here. Make sure to subscribe, like the show, tell a friend to tell a friend, right? And Cameron, where can they find your work on the daily life of Texas A&M?
Yeah, so you can find all my stuff at Aggies Wire, part of USA Today Sports. We're covering pretty much everything right now. Like Ken said, it's kind of it's quietish, right? So it's kind of the weird months where we're going into a big stretch of NCAA tournament. Baseball season starting. They're kicking off SEC play against Oklahoma on the road this weekend. And then obviously when spring football does start, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out there. So the media is allowed to, I think it's five total. That's the most they've had in a while. So credit to Mike Elko because the Jimbo Fisher era, I remember that. They closed you out pretty much the entire spring. We knew nothing. Like it was very hard to gauge any success at any position during Jimbo Fisher's career at A&M during the offseason, which maybe that had to do with some of the failures later. But who knows? Either way, we're going to be previewing spring football throughout the month. And going into April even, there's going to be a lot to talk about. So yeah, I think you covered. But yeah, as always, we'll be back next Tuesday night. Gig 'em, and we'll see you then, guys.